Maple Street had always been ordinary. That was part of its charm, Eliza thought, as she pulled into her driveway after an 8-hour shift at the hospital. The identical beige houses with their identical green lawns created a sense of comfort through sameness. Nothing unexpected ever happened here. She stepped out of her car, keys jingling in her hand. The late afternoon sun cast long patterns across the asphalt. She paused, frowning. Something felt different today. The air seemed thicker, carrying a scent she couldn't quite place, like dusty velvet and old books. "Did you see it?" Mrs. Patterson called from next door, peering over the fence. Her eyes were wide, excited. "See what?" Eliza asked, slinging her purse over her shoulder. "That." Mrs. Patterson pointed down the street. Eliza turned and nearly dropped her keys. At the end of Maple Street, where the Henderson family's ranch-style home had stood that morning, now rose a massive structure gleaming in the sunset light. 3 stories tall, with ornate columns and curved balconies decorated with intricate carvings. It looked like something from another century entirely. Pastel blue walls were adorned with white decorative moldings that swirled like cake frosting. Tall windows caught the sun like sheets of gold. "What in the world?" Eliza whispered. "When did this happen?" "It wasn't there this morning," Mrs. Patterson said. "I went out for groceries at 10, and when I came back at noon, there it was. Just there, full size, like it had always been there." Other neighbors had gathered on the street now, staring at the mansion. Some took photos with their phones. 2 children rode their bikes in circles at a safe distance, pointing and laughing. Eliza walked toward it, drawn by curiosity stronger than caution. As she got closer, she noticed more details. Gargoyles that didn't look quite right, their faces too pleasant, too human, perched on the corners of the roof. The front door was at least 12 feet tall, painted a soft pink with gold accents. The lawn had transformed, too. Formal gardens with hedge mazes and marble fountains had replaced the Hendersons' simple grass yard. "Has anyone seen the Hendersons?" she asked a small group of neighbors who had gathered on the sidewalk. They shook their heads. "I knocked earlier," said Mr. Rivera from across the street. "No answer." "Should we call someone?" Eliza suggested. "The police? The city?" "Already did," replied Mrs. Wong, holding up her phone. "They said they're sending someone to look into it. They sounded confused." The group stood in awkward silence, staring at the building that couldn't possibly exist. It looked solid, not like a movie set or a temporary structure. The gardens smelled real. The stone felt cool when Eliza worked up the nerve to touch a nearby fountain. "Look!" shouted someone. "There's a light on inside." Sure enough, a warm glow had appeared in one of the second-floor windows. A figure moved behind gauzy curtains, just a silhouette, but clearly a person in what appeared to be voluminous clothing. "Maybe it's the Hendersons," Mrs. Patterson suggested hopefully. "Maybe they renovated?" No one believed this, not even Mrs. Patterson herself, judging by her tone. Eliza watched the window. The figure seemed to be moving slowly, deliberately, as if performing a ritual. Then, it stopped and turned, appearing to look directly at the gathered neighbors. Even from this distance, Eliza felt the weight of that gaze. The curtain parted slightly, and a pale hand emerged, waving in what seemed like an invitation. "I don't think we should go in there," Eliza said quietly. A police car pulled up then, lights flashing but siren off. 2 officers stepped out, looking as confused as everyone else. "Who reported the building code violation?" one asked, staring up at the mansion. "I did." Mrs. Wong stepped forward. "But I don't think this is just a code violation." The officers approached the building cautiously. One spoke into his radio, requesting backup in a voice that tried and failed to sound routine. "Everyone please stay back," the other officer called to the neighbors. "Return to your homes while we investigate." No one moved. The officers walked up to the mansion's enormous front door. One of them knocked, the sound oddly muted against the thick wood. They waited, knocked again. The door swung open soundlessly. From where she stood, Eliza couldn't see inside, but she saw how the officers stiffened. One stepped back involuntarily. A voice drifted out, speaking what Eliza recognized as French, though she couldn't understand the words. The voice was high, musical, feminine, and somehow wrong for this century. The officers responded in English, sounding professional but tense. More French, followed by light, tinkling laughter. One officer stepped inside. The other hesitated, then followed. The door closed behind them. 15 minutes passed. The crowd grew. More police cars arrived. The officers didn't come out. Radios crackled with confused exchanges. More officers approached the house, weapons drawn now. They knocked, received no answer, and tried the door. It wouldn't open. Night fell completely. Floodlights were set up, illuminating the mansion like a stage set. Yellow caution tape created a perimeter that kept growing as more authorities arrived. Fire department, city officials, even the power company trying to figure out where the building was getting electricity since no one had connected it. Eliza should have gone home. Everyone should have. But they all stayed, watching. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A county-wide emergency alert. Attention. Unexplained structures appearing in multiple locations. Do not approach or enter. Await further instructions. She looked up from her phone. More neighbors were checking their devices, expressions growing concerned. "It's not just here," someone said. "My sister in Oak Ridge says there's one there too," added another voice. Then a woman screamed. Eliza turned to see Mrs. Patterson pointing at the mansion. In every window, and there were dozens, stood a figure, all wearing elaborate 18th century clothing, powdered wigs, painted faces, all perfectly still, all staring at the crowd, and all holding delicate china teacups in outstretched hands. By morning, they had established a command center in the community recreation hall. 15 mansions had appeared across the county overnight. 7 people were missing, the 2 police officers from Maple Street, and 5 others who had apparently entered the buildings before the warning went out. Eliza couldn't sleep, so she volunteered to help coordinate. Her medical background made her useful, and keeping busy helped her avoid thinking too much about what she had seen. Dr. Fleming, the county health director, was speaking to the assembled emergency responders when Eliza arrived. "We have no explanation for the structures," she was saying, her voice steady despite the circles under her eyes. "They appear to be architecturally consistent with late 18th century French Rococo style. Materials testing indicates genuine period construction, plaster, wood, stone, all consistent with techniques not used for over 200 years. A hand went up. Where did they come from? How did they get built overnight? "We don't know," Dr. Fleming admitted. "Satellite imaging shows nothing at 9 p.m. last night. By 6 a.m., all 15 structures were present. There is no construction evidence, no tire tracks, no material debris, no disturbed earth around the foundations. They simply appeared." The room filled with uncomfortable murmurs. "What about the people inside?" someone else asked. Dr. Fleming's expression tightened. "We have attempted communication in multiple languages. They respond only in 18th century French dialect. They appear to be inviting people inside for tea. Under no circumstances is anyone to accept this invitation or enter these structures." "Why not?" Eliza asked before she could stop herself. "I mean, besides the obvious strangeness, is there a specific threat?" Dr. Fleming looked at her. At 4 a.m., a stray dog entered the mansion on Poplar Avenue through what appeared to be a servant's entrance. It emerged 20 minutes later and died within seconds. Preliminary toxicology indicates extreme levels of an unidentified compound resembling certain plant alkaloids used in the 18th century, particularly those derived from foxglove and belladonna. The tea is poisoned. The room went silent. "What do they want?" someone finally asked. "We don't know," Dr. Fleming replied. But as of 30 minutes ago, this situation has been classified as a Type 3 containment scenario. The National Guard will be arriving by noon to establish a secure perimeter around each structure. CDC specialists are en route. For now, our job is to maintain the cordons and ensure no civilians approach within 100 feet of any mansion. As people broke into assigned groups, Eliza checked her phone again. Social media was exploding with reports, theories, and shaky video footage of the mansions. Some clips showed the figures at the windows, holding their teacups with fixed smiles. The comments ranged from fascinated to terrified. A new notification appeared, another emergency alert. Update: 18th century structures reported in 27 states. Military response authorized. Remain in your homes. Curfew in effect from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. until further notice. Eliza felt a chill. This wasn't just local, it was everywhere. Her phone rang. Her mother, calling from Seattle. "Eliza, are you seeing this?" Her mother's voice was tense. "There's one of those houses 2 blocks from me. They've evacuated the whole street." "I'm at the emergency center," Eliza explained. "There's one on my street too. Mom, don't go near it, okay? They're saying the people inside are offering poison tea." "That's not all they're saying on the news," her mother replied. "They're showing footage from Chicago, people walking toward one of the mansions like they're hypnotized. Dozens of them. Police tried to stop them, but they just kept going. They're saying the music did it." "Music? What music? You can't hear it?" "They say it's loudest at night, like a harpsichord or something, playing these beautiful melodies that make you want to follow them." Eliza hadn't heard any music. "Mom, stay inside. Put in earplugs if you have to." "I will. Be safe, honey." After they hung up, Eliza approached Dr. Fleming, who was reviewing maps with a military officer who had just arrived. "Excuse me, doctor," she said. "Is there anything about music in the reports? My mother mentioned people being drawn to the mansions by music." Dr. Fleming looked up sharply. "Where is your mother located?" "Seattle." She exchanged glances with the officer. "We're receiving similar reports from the West Coast. It seems the phenomena is progressing in complexity. Here, we've only observed visual manifestations and attempts at verbal enticement." "What does that mean?" Eliza asked. "It means," the officer said grimly, "that whatever this is, it's learning how to be more persuasive." A commotion at the door interrupted them. A young man burst in, out of breath, his clothes dirty as if he'd been running through fields. "They've got my sister," he shouted. "Please, you have to help her." Security personnel moved toward him, but Dr. Fleming waved them back. "Let him speak." The young man, barely out of his teens, Eliza guessed, stumbled forward. "My sister Mia. We were driving home when we saw one of those mansions. She said it was beautiful. I didn't stop, but she jumped out at a red light and ran toward it. By the time I could turn around, she was already at the door. Someone inside, a woman in this huge dress, was handing her a cup. I screamed for her to stop, but she drank it, and then they pulled her inside." "When was this?" Dr. Fleming asked. "Maybe an hour ago?" "On Westfield Road." Dr. Fleming turned to the officer. "We need a team there immediately." "Is she—" The young man's voice broke. "Is she dead?" "We don't know," Dr. Fleming said gently. "We don't know what happens to people who enter. The tea appears to be toxic, but we haven't recovered any bodies from inside the structures." "Then what happens to them?" he demanded. No one had an answer. The day progressed with increasing tension. Reports kept coming in, more mansions appearing, more people missing. By mid-afternoon, the National Guard had established perimeters around all known structures in the county. Hazmat teams conducted air quality tests. Drones tried to peek through windows but malfunctioned when they got too close. Eliza was helping organize evacuation plans for homes too close to the mansions when her phone buzzed with another alert. Critical update. Do not listen to music coming from structures. Cover ears and move away immediately if heard. sound-blocking headphones recommended for all perimeter personnel. Just as she finished reading, someone shouted from the doorway, "They're coming out!" Everyone rushed outside. From this vantage point on higher ground, they could see 3 of the mansions. And from each one, figures in elaborate 18th century clothing were emerging, gliding down garden paths toward the military cordons. They moved with unnatural grace, skirts and coats swaying. Men in brocade waistcoats and women in wide-hipped dresses with tight bodices. All wore powdered wigs styled high on their heads. All had faces painted white with spots of rouge on cheeks. All smiled with closed lips, and all carried silver trays with teacups. The soldiers at the cordons raised weapons, shouting warnings that the figures ignored. When they reached the yellow tape, they stopped in perfect unison, extending their trays. One spoke, loud enough to carry up the hill to the rec center. "What are they saying?" someone behind Eliza asked. "They're asking if we want tea," a woman translated. "Something about a special recipe from the Marquise. For the sweetest dreams." The figures at the cordon continued to smile, continued to hold out their trays. When no one approached, they spoke again, in unison. "Join the ball," the translator said, sounding uneasy. "The revolution is over. Here, the aristocracy is eternal." A soldier stepped forward, pointing his weapon directly at the nearest figure, a man in a mint-green coat with gold embroidery. "Return to the structure immediately," he ordered. The figure tilted his head, the movement too smooth, too calculated. His painted smile never faltered. Before the translator could speak, the soldier fired a warning shot into the air. All the figures turned their heads in perfect synchronization to look at him. Their smiles widened just enough to reveal teeth, white and perfect, except every single tooth came to a sharp point. Then, as one, they turned and glided back to their respective mansions. "What did they say at the end?" Dr. Fleming asked the translator. The woman's face had gone pale. "Time is running out. Soon they won't be able to help us anymore." She swallowed hard. "They said the poison is mercy. Refusing brings something much worse." Night fell, and with it came the music. It started softly, a distant harpsichord playing a minuet that twisted in ways that made Eliza's teeth ache. Those who heard it described conflicting experiences. Some found it beautiful beyond words. Others said it made them feel like their skin was being peeled away note by note. The emergency center had distributed earplugs and headphones, but they weren't enough for everyone. 3 National Guard soldiers abandoned their posts, walking dreamlike toward the nearest mansion before their comrades managed to tackle them to the ground. They fought with unexpected strength, begging to be released, to join the dance they insisted was waiting for them. Eliza volunteered to help sedate them. As she administered the injection to one thrashing soldier, he grabbed her wrist with surprising force. "They're already inside us," he whispered, eyes wild. "The music just helps us hear what's already there. Don't you feel it? Growing under your skin?" "It's okay," she said automatically. "Just rest now." His eyes cleared briefly before the sedative took hold. "My brother went into one yesterday. I saw him at the window tonight. He was wearing one of those wigs. He was smiling at me." Then he was unconscious, and Eliza was left rubbing her wrist where his fingers had pressed deep enough to bruise. Shortly after midnight, something changed. The music stopped abruptly. At every mansion, all the windows blazed with light at once, illuminating the night like 15 small suns. And in each window, the figures appeared again. Hundreds of them now, far more than any building could actually hold. They stood shoulder to shoulder, face behind face, all staring outward, all holding their teacups at exactly the same angle. Eliza was helping monitor communications when the reports started coming in. Movement at Site 7. Confirm increased activity at Site 12. Multiple entities visible at all windows and now on the roof at Site 3. Then, The most disturbing. We have confirmation of known missing persons visible at Site 8. Repeat. We are seeing the missing police officers from yesterday. They appear to be changed. Dr. Fleming grabbed the radio. What do you mean by changed? A pause. They're wearing the period clothing. Their skin is different, whiter, and they're smiling like the others. Eliza felt something cold settle in her stomach. She thought about the young man's sister, Mia. Was she standing at a window now too, face painted white, teeth filed to points? A new alert flashed across all their phones and devices. Emergency. All personnel retreat to minimum safe distance of 1 mile from all structures. Repeat. All personnel evacuate immediately. What's happening? Eliza asked as people began rushing to comply. Dr. Fleming was already gathering her papers. They're going to try containment measures. We need to move now. They evacuated to a high school 3 miles away, arriving just in time to see military helicopters fly overhead, heading toward the mansions. From the school's sports field, they could see flashes of light in the distance, followed by the rumble of explosions. They're bombing them? Someone asked in disbelief. Controlled demolition, the military liaison corrected. After consultations with various experts, it was determined that conventional destruction methods might disrupt whatever force is generating these structures. They watched the distant flashes, counting 1, 2, 3, 15 in total. For a moment, there was hopeful silence. Then someone pointed. Look! Where each explosion had been, a column of pale blue light now rose into the night sky. The columns grew broader, brighter, until they were painful to look at directly. That wasn't supposed to happen, the military liaison whispered. In the unnatural light, they saw silhouettes, thousands of them, rising into the air, arms outstretched, skirts and coats billowing. The figures spun slowly, a macabre dance against the blue glow, climbing higher and higher until they were just specks. Then, all at once, the columns of light vanished, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency generators kicked on, restoring limited power to their temporary command center. Everyone stood in stunned silence, staring at where the light show had been. Then the radios crackled to life with frantic reports. No structural damage observed at any site. Repeat. The mansions are intact. The explosives had no effect. We're seeing new figures at the perimeters. They're coming out again. Dr. Fleming grabbed the radio. All teams maintain distance. Do not approach the figures under any circumstances. But it was too late for some. Additional reports flooded in, describing groups of civilians breaking through cordons to approach the mansions, walking, running, crawling toward the figures with the teacups. Mass hypnotic response, Dr. Fleming muttered. The light display must have triggered something. What do we do? Eliza asked, feeling helpless for the first time. Dr. Fleming had no answer. By dawn, the situation had deteriorated further. The mansions remained intact, but had somehow expanded. Each now sat in the center of formal gardens that stretched for blocks, replacing ordinary homes and businesses that had been there the day before. The figures continued to emerge, offering their tea to anyone who would take it. And people did take it. Despite warnings, despite barricades, hundreds approached the mansions during the night. None returned. Eliza couldn't bear to stay at the command center anymore. With Dr. Fleming's reluctant permission, she joined a monitoring team tasked with observing one of the mansions from a safe distance. They set up in an abandoned gas station a mile away, using high-powered zoom lenses to watch the activity. Through the viewfinder, she saw something that made her stomach turn. Among the figures in 18th century clothing now gliding through the gardens was a familiar face. Mrs. Patterson from next door, her normally short gray hair now hidden beneath a towering white wig, her friendly face painted ghostly white, her smile revealing pointed teeth as she extended a teacup to the air. practicing for visitors who might approach. "They're turning them," Eliza whispered. "Everyone who goes in comes back as one of them." Her teammate, a tired-looking FEMA agent, nodded grimly. "Question is, what's the end game? They can't convert everyone. We're containing this." "Are we?" Eliza wasn't so sure. The mansions had appeared overnight. They'd withstood explosives. They were growing. Who was to say what they could or couldn't do? The radio crackled with a new alert, national this time, from the highest levels of government. "Attention. All citizens, nationwide state of emergency declared. Shelter in place. Cover all windows. Do not look outside between dusk and dawn. Do not listen to music from unknown sources. Await further instructions." As Eliza listened, she noticed something on her arm, a small blue mark that hadn't been there before. It looked like a tiny fleur-de-lis, the symbol of French royalty. She quickly pulled down her sleeve to cover it, saying nothing to her teammates. The mark tingled pleasantly, and somewhere in the distance, just at the edge of hearing, she thought she heard the first notes of a harpsichord beginning to play. 3 days into what people had started calling the Rococo invasion, Eliza found herself stationed at the high school gym that now served as the main evacuation center. The blue mark on her arm had grown slightly, developing intricate patterns around its edges like delicate lacework. She kept it hidden under long sleeves and tried to ignore the way it seemed to pulse in time with music only she could hear. The situation outside had worsened. 38 mansions now dotted the county, each surrounded by elaborate gardens that consumed more ordinary space every night. Aerial footage showed the structures connecting to each other via expanding hedge mazes and tree-lined promenades. Military containment was failing, not because the soldiers weren't trying, but because the mansions simply ignored physical barriers, appearing on both sides of any blockade by morning. Inside the gym, hundreds of displaced people huddled on cots, their faces drawn with exhaustion and fear. Many had fled with nothing but the clothes they wore when the mansions appeared too close to their homes. Children cried. Elderly people stared into space. Everyone jumped at unexpected sounds. Eliza moved through the crowd, distributing water bottles and granola bars. Her medical training made her useful here, helping treat minor injuries and anxiety attacks, though proper medication was in short supply. "Miss?" A small voice stopped her. A girl, perhaps 7 years old, looked up with solemn eyes. "Are the pretty people going to come here too?" Eliza knelt down. "What pretty people, sweetheart?" "The ones in the fancy dresses. I saw them from my window before Mommy covered it up. They were dancing in our street." Eliza glanced around for the girl's mother, spotting a woman asleep on a nearby cot. "They won't come here," she assured the child, hoping it wasn't a lie. "This place is safe." The girl tilted her head. "But they looked so happy, and the music was so nice." A chill ran through Eliza. "You heard music?" The girl nodded. "Like in princess movies, but prettier. It made me want to dance." "Did you tell your mom about the music?" "Yes, but she couldn't hear it. She said I was dreaming." The girl reached out suddenly, touching Eliza's wrist where her sleeve had ridden up slightly. "You have a pretty blue mark, like the ones the dancing people have on their faces." Eliza pulled her sleeve down quickly. "It's just a bruise," she lied. "Listen, if you hear that music again, you tell your mom right away, okay? And put your fingers in your ears until it stops." The girl looked dubious but nodded. As Eliza stood, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Another emergency alert. "Warning. Reports of structures now appearing indoors. Check all closets, attics, and basement spaces. Report any unusual doors, archways, or decorative elements immediately. Do not investigate alone." She stared at the message in disbelief. Indoors? How was that even possible? A commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A group of soldiers was escorting someone in. A middle-aged man whose clothes were dirty and torn, his face scratched as if he'd run through thorn bushes. "I made it out," he was saying, voice hoarse. "I actually made it out." Dr. Fleming pushed through the crowd, gesturing for the man to be brought to the makeshift medical area. Eliza followed, curiosity overriding her better judgment. "Sir, you're saying you were inside one of the mansions?" Dr. Fleming asked, pulling on gloves before examining his injuries. He nodded frantically. 3 days. I was in there for 3 days. The crowd around them had gone silent, everyone straining to hear. "What happened? How did you get in, and how did you escape?" Dr. Fleming kept her voice calm, professional, though Eliza could see the tension in her shoulders. "I was at home, Meadowbrook Apartments on Canton Street. I went to get something from my hall closet, and when I opened the door..." He swallowed hard. "It wasn't my closet anymore. It was a long hallway with gold mirrors and paintings. I should have closed the door right away, but I was confused. I stepped in, just one step to make sure I wasn't seeing things. The door slammed behind me." Dr. Fleming cleaned a cut on his forehead. "Go on." "Inside, it was all fancy, like a palace or something. There were people everywhere in old-fashioned clothes. They kept offering me drinks, food. I refused everything. I kept trying to find a way out, but the hallways never ended, and all the windows showed gardens that were too high up to jump." "How did you escape?" Eliza couldn't help asking. The man looked at her, eyes haunted. "I hid. For 3 days, I hid in servants' passages, in wardrobes, under beds. They kept searching for me. I could hear them calling, saying the tea would make everything better, that resistance was pointless since the transformation had already begun. Last night, I found a small door in what looked like a kitchen. It led to a tunnel, and the tunnel led to a storm drain 2 blocks from my apartment." "Did you see anyone else in there?" Dr. Fleming asked. "Anyone who might have been taken earlier?" He nodded slowly. "They weren't the same anymore. They were dressed like the others, with the white faces and weird smiles. But I recognized some of them. My neighbor Tom, a mailman I see all the time. They were serving tea, arranging flowers, playing music." He shuddered. "The worst part was their eyes. Still normal, still aware, like they knew exactly what they'd become, but couldn't stop it." Dr. Fleming exchanged glances with a military officer who had been listening nearby. She turned back to the man. "Did you touch anything while you were inside? Accept anything, even water?" "No," he said firmly. "Nothing." "And did they mark you in any way?" He frowned. "What do you mean? Any unusual marks on your skin? Particularly blue ones?" The man's hand went automatically to his neck, then dropped. "How did you know?" "May I see?" Reluctantly, he pulled down his shirt collar, revealing a small blue fleur-de-lis at the base of his throat. Eliza's arm tingled in response. "When did this appear?" Dr. Fleming asked, examining the mark without touching it. "I noticed it the first night. It was tiny then. It's getting bigger." Dr. Fleming straightened up. "You need to be quarantined immediately." "What? No," the man protested. "I got away. I'm fine." "Sir, we've seen these marks before. We need to check for symptoms." "What symptoms?" he demanded, fear edging into his voice. Before Dr. Fleming could answer, the lights flickered and went out. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, but the brief darkness was enough to send ripples of panic through the crowd. A soldier burst through the door, breathing hard. "Doctor, you need to see this." She followed him outside, and after a moment's hesitation, Eliza went too. In the parking lot, they looked toward the horizon where the nearest mansion was located, about 3 miles away. Above it, visible even at this distance, was a swirling cloud of blue light. It spun like a slow-motion tornado, widening as it rose. "What is that?" Dr. Fleming asked no one in particular. The soldier handed her a tablet showing live drone footage. The image showed the mansion's roof opening like a blooming flower, its walls peeling back to reveal something inside, something that glowed with the same blue light, but was definitely not part of any 18th century architecture. It looked almost like machinery, but with organic elements, pulsing, flowing parts that made Eliza's eyes hurt to look at. "We're picking up energy readings off the charts," the soldier explained, "and there's a transmission being broadcast from it on all frequencies." "What kind of transmission?" "Music, ma'am, and a voice speaking in French. We're working on a translation." As if on cue, Eliza's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. So did Dr. Fleming's, and the soldiers, and apparently everyone else's, as a chorus of ringtones and vibrations sounded from inside the gym. Dr. Fleming answered hers, putting it on speaker. Through the static came a voice speaking French in aristocratic tones, followed by harpsichord music that made Eliza's mark burn pleasantly. The soldier checked his tablet again. Translation coming through. It sang, "The Court of Versailles welcomes its new subjects. The transition begins at midnight. Those who bear the royal mark will be spared the pain of forced transformation. Those who do not will serve as something like raw material for the new gardens." "Turn it off," Dr. Fleming ordered. "Tell everyone to turn off their phones, radios, everything. No electronic communications until we know what this transmission does." But it was too late for some. Already, people were walking out of the gym, expressions blank and peaceful, heading in the direction of the blue light. The escaped man was among them, his eyes glazed, the blue mark on his neck now glowing visibly through his shirt. "Stop them!" Dr. Fleming shouted. Soldiers moved to intercept, but there were too many people moving at once. Some fell as they were tackled, but others kept walking with single-minded determination, pushing through the line of soldiers as if they felt no pain. Eliza felt a pull herself, a whisper in her mind telling her how beautiful the mansion would be, how wonderful the eternal ball. The mark on her arm throbbed in time with the distant music. It took all her willpower to stay put, to dig her nails into her palms until the pain cleared her head. "We need to evacuate," Dr. Fleming was saying. "This location is compromised." "Where to?" the soldier asked. "Reports are coming in of the same phenomenon at all evacuation centers within a 50-mile radius." Dr. Fleming's face hardened. "Then we go further. Get every vehicle you can. We load up the people who aren't affected and drive until we're out of range." "And the others? The ones who are walking toward it?" She hesitated only briefly. "We can't help them now." Within an hour, they had organized a convoy of buses, military vehicles, and civilian cars. Those who showed no signs of the blue mark or response to the music were loaded in, frightened but compliant. Eliza helped usher children and elderly people onto buses, trying to ignore the growing discomfort in her arm. "You should go with them," Dr. Fleming said, appearing beside her as she guided an old man to a seat. "I'm fine," Eliza insisted. "I can still help." Dr. Fleming's eyes fell to Eliza's sleeve. "Show me your arm." There was no point lying. Eliza rolled up her sleeve, revealing the fleur-de-lis that now covered most of her forearm, its patterns growing more complex by the hour. "How long?" "Since the explosions 3 days ago," Eliza admitted. "But I'm fighting it. I can still think clearly." Dr. Fleming studied her face. "For now. But we don't know how this progresses. You could become a danger to the others." "Or I could be valuable," Eliza countered. "I hear the music, I feel the pull, but I'm resisting it. Maybe we can learn something from that." After a long moment, Dr. Fleming nodded. "You ride with me in the command vehicle. At the first sign that you're losing control, you tell me immediately. Understood?" "Yes." As the convoy prepared to depart, Eliza looked toward the blue light on the horizon. It had expanded, now touching the clouds, turning the night sky an eerie azure. The escaped man and dozens of others continued to walk toward it, ignoring calls to come back, moving with the stiff grace of puppets on strings. Eliza wondered if she would join them by morning. The convoy drove through the night, heading west into rural areas where no mansions had yet been reported. Eliza sat in the command vehicle with Dr. Fleming and 3 military officers, monitoring communications and tracking the spread of what they now knew was happening not just nationally, but globally. Reports came in from across the world: Paris, London, Moscow, Beijing, Cairo, all describing the same mansions appearing overnight, the same figures offering tea, the same blue marks appearing on those who got too close. "It's not random," Dr. Fleming said, studying a map where all known mansion locations had been plotted. "Look at the pattern." Indeed, when viewed globally, the mansions formed a vast, intricate design across the Earth's surface, curves and flourishes like the decorative elements of Rococo architecture itself, but on a planetary scale. "It's a ritual circle," said one of the officers, a woman who had been introduced as a consultant from a classified research division. "Or something analogous to one. These structures are creating a geometric pattern that serves some larger purpose." "Which is what?" Eliza asked, wincing as the mark on her arm pulsed particularly strongly. "Based on the transmissions we've intercepted?" The consultant looked grim. "They're terraforming, remaking our world into something else. The architecture, the people in period clothing, they're just the visible manifestation of something our minds can actually comprehend. The reality is likely much more alien." "Alien?" Dr. Fleming repeated. "You're suggesting extraterrestrial involvement?" "Or extra-dimensional," the consultant replied. "The physics readings we're getting from these structures don't conform to normal space-time parameters." The radio crackled. "Command, this is Scout Team Alpha. We've reached the designated safe zone, but, ma'am, you need to see this." The driver pulled over, and they gathered around a tablet showing the live feed from the scout team 50 miles ahead. In the middle of what should have been empty farmland stood a massive structure, not a mansion this time, but what appeared to be a full-scale replica of Versailles Palace, complete with sprawling gardens that stretched for miles in every direction. Spotlights illuminated its facade, gleaming gold against the night sky. Music drifted from it, clear even through the video feed. "That's not possible," one of the officers muttered. "Our latest satellite pass showed nothing there 2 hours ago." "They're accelerating," the consultant said quietly. "The transformation is happening faster now." Dr. Fleming turned to the driver. "Turn us around. We need a new direction." But before they could move, the tablet screen changed. The scout team's camera swung wildly, catching glimpses of figures in elaborate court dress emerging from the palace. Hundreds of them, gliding across gardens with inhuman speed, heading directly for the camera. Then the feed went dead. "Try to raise them," Dr. Fleming ordered. No response came. They changed course, heading north instead of west. But Eliza knew in her heart it was pointless. The mark on her arm told her so, whispering that there was nowhere to run, that the world was changing, that it would be so much easier to accept it. By dawn, they had reports of new structures appearing in their path no matter which direction they turned. The convoy had grown as they picked up other refugees along the way, but many more had succumbed to the call and walked away toward the nearest mansion. They stopped at an abandoned truck stop to refuel and regroup. While the others discussed increasingly desperate options, Eliza slipped away to the bathroom, needing a moment alone. In the grimy mirror, she examined her reflection. The blue mark had spread up her neck now, tendrils of it reaching toward her face. Her eyes looked normal, but for how much longer? The man from the mansion had lasted only hours after escaping before the call became too strong to resist. She splashed water on her face, trying to clear her thoughts. The music in her head had grown louder, more insistent, a courtly dance that promised elegance and eternity. "Fight it," she told her reflection. "Just keep fighting it." A noise behind her made her turn. In the corner of the bathroom, where a supply closet should have been, stood a pink-painted door with gold filigree that definitely hadn't been there when she entered. It was small, only about 4 feet high, but ornate, carved with cherubs and flowers. As she watched, frozen in place, the doorknob turned slowly. Eliza backed up until she hit the sink. The door creaked open to reveal darkness beyond, and then a white-gloved hand emerged, holding a familiar teacup. "Your place at court awaits you." "No," Eliza said, surprised that she could speak at all through her fear. The hand extended further, the cup almost glowing in the dim bathroom light. "You already bear our mark. Why resist the inevitable?" The blue pattern on Eliza's arm burned in response, urging her to take the cup, to drink, to surrender. Instead, she lunged for the bathroom door, yanking it open and stumbling outside. "They're here!" she shouted to the convoy. "They're inside the building!" Chaos erupted as people ran for the vehicles. Through windows, Eliza could see more ornate doors appearing throughout the truck stop, in walls, in floors, even in the ceiling. From each, hands emerged offering teacups. Some people ran. Others stood transfixed, slowly reaching for the cups with expressions of wonder. Those who had been fighting their own marks gave in all at once, walking with measured steps to accept the tea. Dr. Fleming grabbed Eliza's arm, pulling her toward the command vehicle. "Come on!" They drove again, their convoy smaller now, everyone silent with the knowledge that they were running out of options and places to run to. Midday brought another emergency broadcast, this one from what remained of the federal government. "Attention, all citizens. The President has authorized the use of targeted nuclear strikes against major incursion sites. All personnel within 300 miles of the following coordinates must evacuate immediately." What followed was a list that included locations less than 50 miles from their current position. "They're going to bomb it," Eliza said, feeling numb. "Do they really think that will work when conventional explosives did nothing?" "They have to try something," Dr. Fleming replied, though she didn't sound convinced. They changed course again, driving at dangerous speeds away from the designated strike zone. The blue mark on Eliza's body pulsed with something that felt almost like amusement. By late afternoon, they had reached a small town that appeared untouched by the invasion. People still walked the streets. Shops remained open, though everyone moved with nervous energy, glancing frequently at the sky. They stopped to restock supplies, and Eliza volunteered to help distribute food among the refugees. As she handed out sandwiches, she noticed a young woman staring at her intently from across the street. The woman wore modern clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, but her face was unnaturally pale, her smile fixed in a way that made Eliza's skin crawl. Without drawing attention, Eliza moved closer to one of the soldiers. 3 o'clock, woman in the blue shirt, she's one of them. The soldier glanced over casually, then stiffened. How is that possible? She's not in period clothing. They're adapting, Eliza realized, camouflaging themselves to blend in. Before they could react, the woman raised her hand in a small wave, revealing a blue fleur-de-lis covering her palm. Then she turned and walked away, her movements too smooth, too deliberate. "Should we follow her?" the soldier asked. "No," Eliza said immediately. "That's what they want." They reported the sighting to Dr. Fleming, who ordered an immediate departure. As they loaded back into the vehicles, Eliza noticed more pale-faced people watching from windows, doorways, street corners, all perfectly still, all smiling closed-mouth smiles, all bearing the blue mark somewhere visible. The convoy barely made it out of town before the barricades appeared, overturned trucks and cars blocking the main road, forcing them to stop. From all sides, people emerged, hundreds of them, some in modern clothes, some in 18th century finery, all with the same white faces and fixed smiles. They formed a circle around the convoy, holding teacups before them like offerings. "Drive through them," someone shouted. But the engines of all the vehicles suddenly died, leaving them stranded in silence, broken only by the soft notes of a harpsichord that seemed to come from the air itself. The crowd parted, and a figure approached. A woman in the most elaborate gown Eliza had ever seen. Her wig styled so high it nearly doubled her height. Her face painted white with beauty marks in the shape of stars and crescent moons. Blue marks covered her visible skin like delicate lace. She stopped before the command vehicle, looking directly at Dr. Fleming, who had stepped out to meet this apparent leader. "Resistance is finished," the woman said. "What do you want?" Dr. Fleming asked. "Why are you doing this?" The woman tilted her head, the movement fluid yet somehow wrong. "We bring beauty. We bring order. Your world is ugly and chaotic. We make it magnificent. By forcibly changing people? By destroying our civilization?" "Not destroying, transforming, as we were transformed so long ago." The woman's smile widened slightly, revealing pointed teeth. "We were human once too, before the stars found us and gifted us with eternity." She gestured to the people surrounding them. "They are happy now. They dance forever." From within the crowd, Eliza spotted a familiar face. Mrs. Patterson, her neighbor, now fully transformed with white face and elaborate wig. But as the woman spoke, something flickered in Mrs. Patterson's eyes. A momentary awareness, a flash of terror quickly suppressed. "They're not happy," Eliza said, stepping forward despite Dr. Fleming's attempt to stop her. "They're trapped." The woman turned to her, eyes narrowing. "You bear our mark, yet you resist. How?" Eliza didn't answer, unsure herself. The mark on her arm burned painfully now, spreading visibly up her neck and onto her cheek. The woman approached her, moving with that unnatural grace. She reached out with one gloved finger, tracing the blue pattern on Eliza's face. The touch was cold, making Eliza shiver. "Fascinating. Your will is strong. You will make a precious addition to the court." "I won't," Eliza managed to say through the pain of the mark's expansion. "I refuse." The woman's smile never faltered. The poison offers a gentle transition. Refusal brings forced transformation. More painful, but equally effective. From somewhere in the distance came a low rumble, the promised nuclear strikes beginning. The woman didn't even look up. "Your weapons are useless. We are not physical in the way you understand." She raised a hand, and all around the convoy, the air seemed to ripple. Ornate doorways appeared, floating in space. Dozens of them, each opening to reveal the glittering interior of a palace. The time for the ball has come. As one, the crowd moved forward, encircling the refugees completely. They moved with purpose but without haste, confident in their inevitability. Eliza stood her ground beside Dr. Fleming, even as the blue mark spread across her face, even as the music in her head threatened to drown out all other thought. "If we drink the tea," she whispered to Dr. Fleming, "do we keep our minds at all? Or do we disappear completely?" "Does it matter?" Dr. Fleming replied, watching the approaching crowd with resigned eyes. "Either way, we lose ourselves." The woman in the elaborate gown approached again, now holding a teacup of her own. She offered it to Eliza. "For you, a special place at court. Your resistance has shown your worth." The blue pattern now covered half of Eliza's face, curling around her eye, making her vision blur on that side. The pain was becoming unbearable. "What happens if I take it?" she asked, surprising herself with the question. The woman's smile softened almost imperceptibly. "The pain stops. Beauty begins. You dance for eternity in halls that never knew revolution, where aristocracy still reigns." Eliza looked at the cup, then at the faces of the transformed people surrounding them. In each one, beneath the fixed smile and blank stare, she thought she could see something remaining. A tiny spark of awareness, of humanity trapped behind porcelain features. The rumbling grew louder. The nuclear strikes were getting closer. Choose now. Eliza closed her eyes, feeling the blue mark burning across her skin, hearing the music crescendo in her mind. Beautiful and terrible at once. When she opened her eyes again, She slowly reached for the cup. 6 months later, in what had once been Paris, but was now an endless expanse of rococo palaces and gardens, a ball was held. Not that there was ever a time when balls weren't being held somewhere in the transformed world, but this one was special. A celebration of the completion of the grand design, the final flourish in the pattern that had remade Earth into a court of eternal dance and beauty. In a ballroom with ceilings that seemed to touch the stars themselves, hundreds of figures waltzed in perfect synchronization, their movements as precise as clockwork, their white faces frozen in perpetual smiles, their eyes, the only part of them that remained as they had been, watching from behind masks of powder and paint. At the center of it all stood the queen of this new court, a woman whose blue markings were the most elaborate of all, covering her skin in patterns of such complexity that they seemed to move in the candlelight. She wore no wig, her natural hair styled simply, standing out among the powdered heads surrounding her. Beside her stood the woman in the grand gown who had offered her the final choice, now serving as an advisor and translator between the old court and the new. "Are you satisfied with your creation, Your Majesty?" The queen watched the dancers, her face painted white like all the others, her smile fixed and serene, revealing teeth filed to delicate points. The only difference was her eyes, still aware, still calculating, still fully present. "Oui," she replied in perfect, aristocratic French. Yes, the dance will never stop. What had once been Eliza moved through the ballroom, greeting her subjects with graceful nods. Those who had resisted longest, fought hardest, had been granted the greatest gift: awareness within transformation, control within surrender. They were the new nobility of this remade world, their minds intact even as their bodies became something else entirely. Outside the windows, beyond the endless gardens, the night sky glowed blue instead of black, a perfect match to the markings they all bore. The stars had found them, as they had found the original court centuries ago, offering transcendence in exchange for humanity. Some small part of what had been Eliza, buried deep beneath layers of blue patterns and court etiquette, still remembered running, still remembered fighting. That part watched always from behind her eyes, neither fully accepting nor fully resisting, existing in the liminal space between human and other. As she took her place at the center of the ballroom, teacup in hand to welcome new arrivals from the few remaining pockets of untransformed humanity, that small part wondered, when the last human was gone, when the entire world danced in powdered wigs and pointed smiles, what would they transform next? Through the vast windows, stars glittered like watching eyes, waiting for the expansion of the eternal ball.